ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 10 of The Smallest Star. I'm your host, Cory McAbee, talking to you from Queens, New York, back here in the year 2015, in front of the green curtain. In this month's episode, we're going to talk about deceit. I'm going to tell you a story about deception, but it is also a story about friendship. Once upon a time, there was a man. You could never tell when he was lying. I bet he took the money from the cobbler's bench. Fake face Brian. Once upon a poster in the post office, there was a picture of the wrong man. But how did this story of mistaken identity ever begin? This is how it began. Once upon a time there was a cobbler's bench. And on that bench there was a big stack of money, but not for long. 'Cause once upon a time there was a man who looked a lot like you, Brian. I'm talking to you, Brian. You were there that night, and you thought you could pin it on Rusty. Well, it couldn't have been Rusty, 'cause he was with me that night. You didn't count on that, did you, Brian? He was once upon a chair at my kitchen table drinking beers and bragging about how he hasn't caught a cold in 20 years. In 20 years. That's when Brian removed his mask, and it was Rusty. How you been, Rusty? Not bad, says I. Once upon a lie. Once upon a guy there was a mask of Brian, but it didn't really look like Brian. It was mostly made of pipe cleaners and tinfoil. Brian was made of other things. A tennis ball. A piece of string. That's what guys like Brian were made of. Not Rusty, though. He was far more heroic, a little bit crazy and a little bit stoic. And when Rusty comes back, I'll be the first to let him know it. He'll understand. He's a good guy. Not like fake face robot Brian with his tinfoil cheeks and his pipe cleaners. But Brian had his good points too. And so do I. And so do you. And once upon a time there was Brian. May I borrow a Kleenex, he would ask? No, Brian. You may have a Kleenex. And when you're done, I never want to see it again. Brian was my friend, but he always had a cold. Not like Rusty, who hasn't had a cold in 20 years. And if he warms up to you, I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. The clock ticked on, and still no Rusty, but after a while Brian came walking in, and wasn't he surprised to see me sitting there? Oh, you surprised me. What have you done with the money? Funny you should ask, he was right. We laughed and laughed all through the night until the very next day. Remember when we used to laugh that way? But while we were laughing, Brian positioned himself so the sun was directly behind me. The light bounced off of his tinfoil forehead. I was blinded. I'm blind, I said. I covered my eyes. But when my hands cleared, Brian had disappeared. B is for bad, and B is for Brian. And that's just one of those facts that you have to get used to. Now use this information with everything you do. And thank you for tuning in to episode 10 of The Smallest Star. I'm your host, Cory McAbee. Please check out the blog at smalleststar.com and join me at my website at corymacabee.net. Net. That's corymacabee.net.